So, hello and welcome, everyone. I'm really excited to get into today's conversation, connecting hospitality businesses with local food suppliers across South West Wales. So, as many of you know, For the Region hosts an annual regional food conference. It's coming up again. And one of the themes that arose out of last year's regional food conference was the importance of connecting hospitality businesses across our region with the fantastic local food producers that we are so proud to have across South West Wales, and to really unpack, I suppose, some of the challenges and opportunities around all that. We've assembled today a really great group of thought leaders and practitioners in all of this, with some great examples of businesses in the hospitality and tourism sectors that are already working really hard to connect with local producers and suppliers in our region, and hopefully get into what's working well, what we need to see more of, what are some of the challenges around this, and why it's so important. So I'm delighted to have Sandra Phillips from Bluestone, Alex Cook from Superbox, Richard Bond from Food and Drink Wales, Vicky Moller from Pembrokeshire Group Resilience, and Stuart Mine from The Mine. And no doubt lots of insight and wisdom to be shared this morning. So thanks all for being here and making the time to come and join this discussion. Sandra, I'm going to pick on you first of all, because I know Bluestone are, one of the major employers in our region, huge economic driver, big tourism business, loads of visitors coming to Bluestone every year, great opportunity through Bluestone to showcase the best of our region. And I know you guys are really proactive on this. So please, will you kick us off by telling us a little bit about what's happening at Bluestone and what you guys are doing to work with local producers and suppliers, specifically around food?
Okay, so as you know, Sandra Phillips, I'm the commercial business partner here at Bluestone, and I lead the procurement side of the business. I've only actually been here 12 months, so a lot of work has been going on in the last 12 months. We basically, we have a procurement policy, of which is to buy and source local where possible. Obviously, not everything's possible to buy local, but so when we're looking for new products, we always go local first to see if they can keep up with demand and supply. We work very closely with quite a few local suppliers already. I'm not sure if you want lists yet or anything like that. And then we've also started working with Richard, actually, in Food and Drink Wales, on how we can promote the local produce that we sell, because that's where we're lacking. We buy quite a lot of local produce, but not many of our customers know about it yet. So we're working very closely with Richard on the marketing side of that as well. So yeah, it's sustainability as well is a very key factor in our procedures. So we do quiz suppliers on sustainability and their ethos, as well as their supplying to us then.
Yes, great. Well, I think that's a key point that you've made straight away there, is really showcasing and amplifying the local produce that is on the plate within businesses across the region. And I think a lot of companies are doing more local sourcing than we realise. But do you think customers are interested in where their food comes from? And do you see that there's a real kind of selling point, a good message to shout about there?
Yeah, no, definitely. So we've been making headway. And again, with obviously the increasing prices and things, we want to support local. So we have to shout out about the fact that it's local, so the guests understand why we've got the price points we've got. So
yeah, okay, good. Vicky, would you like to come in on some of that?
Yeah, no, just because when my family went on a family holiday some years ago to Bluestone, we sat down in a restaurant and the waiter said, can I tell you about the menu? And he talked about all these sources of the food. I thought, bloody hell, did he know it was me here? I don't think he did. He just but I was speaking to Martin Lewis yesterday, and that doesn't happen now.
No, because Richard happened to visit us as well, and he wasn't. So Richard firstly got in touch because he thought we needed to buy more local. And then when I spoke with Richard and explained everything that we did buy, that's when we got onto the marketing side of things then. And it's like, right, okay, we need to look into this area.
Yeah, I don't know. You could experiment with your waiters and customers again.
Definitely.
See, they might say, no, that's all right, thank you.
Yeah, I mean, it's really great when the staff are really knowledgeable, isn't it, about where the produce comes from and can really sell it. Richard, do you want to talk to us a bit about the importance of the kind of marketing angle on some of this and the work that you're doing?
Yeah, sure, Dawn. No, I mean, Sandra absolutely makes a valid point. They're doing fantastic stuff. The source is absolutely brilliant. And it's those touch points for the customer experience, because I think it's the balance between there's doing the right thing, which Bluestone absolutely are focused on doing. They've got this desire to have a sense of place, buy local wherever possible, to focus on sustainability options and all of this. And all of that in terms of the ethos and the culture is absolutely bang on. Commercially, there's then the opportunity to spread that message and use it to actually connect better with the customers and the guests that are coming through. And I think that's where we've had some really good meetings recently, shared some information, shared some data. There's a really good food tourism toolkit that's available through the Food and Drink Wales structure, which gives ideas around products to source that are local, products and ingredients and recipes and dishes that are Welsh. The best way to pull that out on a menu to make it visible, to make it sing and add value, so that it's not just a steak. It is, as they sell in Bluestone, a Lanska steak, guaranteed to come from these counties in Wales, farm assured, high welfare, PGI Welsh beef. It's absolutely fantastic. And it's just that difference of reading that on a menu without it feeling like a sales pitch, because there's that balance. You don't want to sort of have Welsh in front of every word on the menu. But equally, much as we would love every one of our members of staff to be able to tell every customer the sourcing of the wine, the grapes, the potatoes, etc., in the current climate and in reality, a lot of those staff haven't got the skills, the capacity or the focus, and turnover can be an issue. So having the right touch points on the menu, having the right touch points in venue and in terms of information, and we've touched on with Sandra and Bluestone potentially having information in the lodges so that people are there and they get, when they're their downtime, when they're having a little chill out, they can pick something up and actually get some background about the sourcing, the culture, the ethos, which is so strong, but also about the products that are available, whether that be in the restaurants, in the catering facilities, or even for Bluestone, because it's predominantly self-catering, in the retail environment where people can go and pick up locally sourced produce to cook themselves in the lodges. So it's myriad. And I think the more touch points that are real and genuine, rather than almost sourcing washing, rather than greenwashing, they add commercial value. And through the trade programme that the Welsh Government supports, there's a number of sections of research that have been done over the last 5 years about the value of Welshness and the value of local sourcing, and what people will spend as a premium on that, what they will do to their behaviours in terms of shopping, their visits, their loyalty, and driving all of that benefit forward commercially for businesses. It's really, really powerful.
Thanks, Richard. Yeah, really interesting. I mean, definitely from a consumer perspective, I love to hear about and know the provenance of the food I'm eating, and it would be great to find more opportunities to promote that way of thinking among more and more people. But you've mentioned the kind of commercial value for businesses, so using this as a kind of selling point, but then balancing that with the kind of price premium that is incurred, and that's sort of a difficult balancing act to strike. Alex, will you tell us a little bit about your perspective on some of this? I know you run a business that creates meals from local produce, and that's like a key part of your selling point. Do you want to talk to us a bit more about your perspective and where you see the key challenges and opportunities in all of this?
Yeah, of course. Thanks, Dawn. Yeah, so we're in Superbox. We have done for the last 18 months, launched in the middle of COVID to try and support local suppliers. We're a registered social enterprise, so we reinvest profits for community food education, nutritious meals, community health, things like that. When we were sort of most busy, I think we had about 40 different local suppliers, all based within 60 miles. Things we couldn't source locally were either imported certified class 1 organic, depending on season, or grains from Essex, so British. And the challenges really for us were ordering, so having an aggregated local supply in one place to order. I know that a lot of hospitality relies on large distributors like Castle Howell or Glass Void. So, for example, we were very much focused on fresh ingredients, and that isn't always available through those two. There are other sort of retailers like Watson and Pratt up in Lampeter, which are able to aggregate local sort of organic supply. But again, the limitations of that are certification of organic. So a lot of local small scale producers won't go through that certification process. And again, yeah, coming back to the price point, and due to the nature of local supply being not in, particular to horticulture, not being loads of it, then there is a price premium that you have to pay for that, and you have to pass that on to the consumer. Again, echoing what Richard said, the importance is obviously telling the story. And I just wanted to pick up on one thing that Sandra said. And you said everything that we procure, it's not possible to source everything locally that we procure. And I wanted to sort of understand that a bit more, because when it came to our particular product for recipe kits, we developed the recipes and the menu based on what's seasonal and local. And I wondered if it was more the sort of product element rather than the sort of, the fresh section that she was referring to.
Yeah, sorry. So yeah, the dry goods. So the bacon goods and things like that. We procure from Castle Howell, and we also do use Bid Food. But yeah, no, the local seasonal products, we use Wise Buys in Narberth to draw in the products from them. And then we've recently taken on Blackpool Mill, which is undergoing a big refurbishment, and we've been working with some chef consultants with that. And the menu's based very much on seasonal produce that's available in Pembrokeshire at different times of the year. So that's how that menu is going to be playing out there, which is exciting.
Yeah, that sounds really great. I mean, it's about designing the menu, knowing what produce is available, and then designing the menu accordingly, rather than the other way around. And as Richard was saying, there's plenty of information and advice and resources for, I guess, chefs and kitchens about the kinds of things that could go onto menus that would be available from within Wales.
Yeah, one of our struggles with Blackpool Mill is actually local seafood. That's one of our struggles that we are coming across at the moment. But Vicky's putting her hand up, so that looks exciting.
Yeah, so I'd like to come to Vicky next, because I know, Vicky, you've been working really hard over the last few months around Newport with smaller, I guess, restaurants and cafes, talking to them about local sourcing. We heard a little bit from Richard already about the challenges that hospitality businesses are already facing regarding like staffing and difficult economic climate, but what's been your experience of talking to those smaller businesses, and what headway have you been able to make?
Yeah, well, compacting it is a challenge, isn't it? So we decided to do a lot of work around a food festival, because we have been supporting new producers in the area who was coming into play anyway, and quite a lot of them, I think, two of the new producers and some of the new restaurants are local young people who've come back to start these businesses. So it's been fabulous to be able to throw some funding their way through the youth CRF thing, and also to then link them with the restaurants and do some surveys of what the barriers are, and then get the chefs and food businesses together to a meeting after the summer when they're exhausted and really glad to have a drink together and just to chat about what they could do going forward. And we thought they'd want to talk about the food festival. They didn't so much. They wanted to talk about how they could get local produce onto their menus and escape the clutches of their sole suppliers, mostly Total Produce. And it was very in-depth, and it was really useful discussion with lots of pointers the way forward. So that's to be continued. Meanwhile, we're building up the food festival, which is a mix of a food fair and then farm visits to the producers and talks by producers and special meals at all various different restaurants featuring hyper-local ingredients. So, and the idea is to do something in one town, which, if it works, if it's useful, could be replicated in any town, rural town where there's producers around, to restore that relationship between the land you can virtually see, especially with a mountain to climb up, around and the produce on your table, and the life of the town, because you're eating out and you're going to local shops. You're not just buying to eat at home. Not that there's something wrong with that, but we want to, benefit all those three things: the life of the town, the producers, nature, the economy, and people's well-being together. So it's a really fun thing to do. That I can say. It's enjoyable. It's a lot of work, but all the work is nothing problematic about it. So I would recommend this approach. We'll see how it goes. That's next week. And yeah, Bluestone is, I talked to Martin Lewis on Sunday, very, very excited about spreading the message of what you're doing. And we're talking about having a Green Business Summit. So I think we might look for some organisation that could help to arrange that. Can't think which.
Yeah, no, what I love about what you're doing around Newport is this really place-based approach. It's a sort of hyper-local, as you say, and connecting up those small producers with local businesses. You talked about those businesses being keen to escape the clutches of their existing suppliers, or do they feel locked in? And then you talked about all the multifaceted benefits of all this. So it's not just economic and it's not just environmental, but it's great for kind of well-being and community cohesion, and I suppose for the resilience of our food system, in the future, with various challenges and shocks that we can anticipate. I guess you feel that the stronger the bonds we can make within the food system, that's growing, because food security.
There's producers that are struggling now, but who knows the future? Maybe it'll be us be struggling to get food. So form those bonds and loyalties. And it feels very right thing to do. I wish you could all come.
Yeah, well, we'll be sharing the links to the Newport Food Festival, and a great opportunity to meet local producers and go to some of the businesses for meals and talks about all of this. And that's obviously going to be really exciting and insightful. Where do you see the key opportunities, Vicky, following that meeting that you talked about? What were some of the kind of key action areas that you'd like to move forward with over the next few months?
Well, just talking from their perspective, what they were saying, they were talking about distribution and having a hub where all the producers bring, and then they distribute it out from there, because reliability was up there ahead of price in terms of a key consideration. And while they're happy to adapt their menus to be seasonal, reliability is, as I said, primary concern. They're there to serve customers, not to chase around looking for stuff. So there was discussion of shared infrastructure, basically, whether it's transport or chill storage, or processing, or information logistics, centralizing that. That's what they were bringing up. And they were enjoying the conversation, and it was a one conversation. We need to broaden it to see what else people bring up. But they really did enjoy getting together after the summer, because they are rival businesses, but that was set aside because they had a good drink and natter together, hosted by one of them who kept adding to the wine.
That's great. Yeah. So I think that picks up on what you were saying, Alex, about distribution and centralization, kind of aggregation of, is that a word? Aggregation of suppliers. Has there been work going on in Carmarthenshire around that challenge specifically of aggregating distribution?
Yeah, there has. There's a public procurement pilot where they've taken 10 local suppliers, mostly horticulture, and tapped into a local authority care home and a local authority leisure facility down at Pembury Country Park. And the Pembury Country Park is quite interesting because they've developed a specials menu, which, but they've got the skill set to do that within their catering team, which is good. And the care homes are quite interesting because their menus and their clients, I suppose, the people that are in the care homes, often the food that they eat is reflective of a time gone past where we didn't have as much commercialization, and it was very much, not to say meat and two veg, but relying on fresh ingredients and cooked from scratch rather than sort of processed things.
The way we eat has changed so much. Getting back to that idea that we eat seasonally and eat what's available is a sort of whole culture shift for a lot of people. I'd like to bring Stuart in. Stuart Mine, you're from the mine. Tell us about your business and your perspective on local sourcing. How much are you able to source locally from around the local area?
Yeah, absolutely. Hope you can all hear me okay. My name's Stuart James. I'm the director of the mine and the mine at Castellani's. We have 3 restaurants within South Wales, employing approximately 70 people, with a turnover of about 2.5 million. We predominantly sell street food and Italian cuisine. Wherever possible, we use local suppliers or local bakers. We have local bakers who supply us with our brownies. We use the Fab 4. I believe Mike Phillips is from down in Pembrokeshire way for our coffee beans. Yeah, where we struggle with at the minute is kind of the meat. We only use British cut meat, but we have to get our meat from the Midlands, which is a massive shame because the volume of meat we use, although we use a local butcher who's from Brecon, he goes and gets the meat from the Midlands. It's all due to cost and economics, unfortunately, for us, especially where the prices are rising everywhere. We're obviously looking, to save where we can. And a big saving to us is through meat. So if anybody on the group knows of anyone, any farmers or anything which are interested in, supplying us, then we'd love to hear from them.
Great. Yeah, that sounds like a real opportunity there. And it brings me on to another thought, which is sometimes we're buying from a local distributor or a local butcher, a local supplier, but we got to peel back the onion another layer, haven't we, and see where their produce is coming from. And clearly that can be challenging. So would you say that the kind of meat and butchery sort of products are, is it because of the volume of those things that you need, or is it purely it comes down to cost?
It comes down to cost. As you can imagine, and everyone, chicken just has got up £9 in the last 12 months. That's a top of 5k. So we have to look at costs quite a lot. If we don't mind paying a little bit extra for Welsh produce, but cost for us is very, very important in the current climate.
Yeah, I mean, we've all been there, standing at a farmer's market, looking at the cucumbers and thinking, oh my God, there is a real premium to pay, and it's difficult to make that argument. Do you find that your clients and customers are interested in the provenance of the food that you sell? And do you make a song and dance about that on your menus and on your boards?
Only that we sell British meat. I believe with our customers, we're song and dance about it. I'm Welsh through and through, and I would love to be selling more Welsh produce. It's really viable for us.
Yeah, that's the challenge. Thanks, Stuart, for that. We'll come back to you hopefully shortly. Richard, does that resonate from what you've heard from Stuart there?
Yeah, very much so. And I think there's a lot of challenges, like you say, in terms of the economy at the moment and the landscape for particularly hospitality businesses, but for everyone in terms of the money they've got to spend. And I think, like you say, it's challenging conceptions. And I think, at the last conference, there was talk about that seasonality, but that also kicks into the products that we're expecting to see on menus, because chicken, if it's raised within Wales, isn't cheap. That's just the fact of the matter. And it's going to be an education piece in terms of customers understanding that what they've been used to eating, that's mass produced, whether that be with additives, whether that be overseas, whether that be, in an unsustainable or potentially immoral way isn't what they should be seeing in the future. And like Derry mentioned, there is beef within Wales that can be accessible pricing. I did some work with a pub company that's based in Wales, and they were buying beef burgers from Breaks at what they felt was a great price. We did some analysis, did some work with Castle Howell, and they're now switched to Celtic Pride beef burgers, which are Welsh, which are farm assured, etc. May not be organic, but that's an improvement, and they actually came in cheaper than the burgers they were already using.
Wow.
So there's opportunities out there, but like I say, the landscape of just replicating exactly what we're using already from Wales or from very hyper-local is a real challenge. And I know, Sandra and the team at Bluestone have been buying, Pembrokeshire organic chicken and using it, which is an absolutely fantastic product, and is, sold in Marks and Spencer's across the UK, but it comes at a real premium.
Yeah, absolutely. We've got another local business here, Derry, from the Warren. How much of your produce are you able to source locally? Is any of this resonating with you? Do you feel the same sort of challenges that Stuart was sharing there?
Yeah, we have similar challenges, but we're kind of, how do I put it? We're having to just try and find other ways to get hold of local produce. So we have been buying off a local organic Welsh beef supplier for the last 6 years. And it's affordable because there is no middle person, there's no butcher in this equation. Therefore, we spend the same amount on organic local beef that's 20 miles away from the restaurant, at the same price as what you would do if I had to, say, go and buy Welsh beef or Celtic Pride from Castle Howell. So we managed to keep the costs down in that respect. The problem that we have there is supply. So they don't have a huge amount of supply for us. So we take what we can get, which they can supply us with plenty of topside and silverside, and the big cuts for our Sunday lunches are absolutely no problem. But the high demand products like steak are very, very difficult for us to get hold of. And as much as I love taking steak off the menu and say, hey, the Warren doesn't serve steak, blah, blah, people want it, and we have to have it on the menu. And so what we've done now is we put a calling out and just said, look, we want local organic Welsh beef. Who can supply us? And social media came to the rescue, and a local company got in touch and said, hey, we do organic Welsh beef, and we can do it at the same price as what you're paying right now, but you need to take the whole or half of the carcass. We'll butcher it all up for you, we'll deliver it all to you, but the price is really competitive. And we've now got steak on our menu, and we've got all of the cuts. We've got fillet steak on the menu. We've never had fillet steak on the menu. So yes, things are challenging. Yes, prices are going up, but they're not going up everywhere. So we've got an organic vegetable grower called Peter and Anne Seger from Blind Camel Farm, and because they are carbon negative, their farm is carbon negative. They put more carbon back into. They take more carbon out of the atmosphere than they put into it by growing vegetables. They have solar, and they have the water that's coming from their stream. Their costs haven't really changed with what's gone on in the world. Yes, fuel costs have changed a little bit. Certain things have changed, but it hasn't been the same as what us hospitality have been hit with. So I haven't seen a huge change in organic local vegetables from Peter. He's also still got plenty of vegetables. He's not running out of vegetables anytime soon. So yes, there have been certain things that have been difficult for us, but we've managed to rejig things, change menus a little bit, reduce menus, reduce staffing, reduce opening times, change things a lot. But that is a lot of hard work, and it costs to change, and it is really tough out there. And yeah, we're by no means not finding it tough.
That is such an interesting story you've told there. Really inspiring to hear about, you know, putting that call out on social media, like really proactively finding those local suppliers, and that they're not always more expensive. And I think we've heard that before, that actually the more we can unhook from kind of global supply chains, the more resilient we become in terms of, you know, local energy, local produce. Perhaps the costs are not skyrocketing as much. So great to hear that perspective. And I can see that the Warren, you know, really promotes itself on the basis of the provenance of its ingredients. And so you clearly see that as a kind of key driver, a key selling point, really important to your customers.
Yeah, I mean, it was from the onset that local seasonal organic food was on the cards from when we opened, but it wasn't that popular when we opened. Whereas now, especially during lockdown, everyone's thinking about it, everyone's talking about it. And so people are coming to us, and that is our unique selling point, is that we are championing local producers and local suppliers and organic food and having a less meat kind of diet. So people are coming to us now, and that is our unique selling point. So it's fantastic to see that, but it doesn't mean that we've still got our bookings getting completely obliterated on some of the most busiest nights that we're expecting. We've had some Saturday nights, which were nearly always fully booked, where we're kind of a quarter full. Last Friday, we had about 4 tables booked, when usually we would have 30 tables booked on a Friday night. So there's just so much uncertainty out there at the moment. And I think, yeah, it's really challenging. But another story from one of our meat suppliers is we buy all of our pork off Merthin Heritage, and they've emailed us at least 3 or 4 times over the last 6 months saying, I'm really sorry, we're gonna have to put our prices up, we're gonna put our prices up. And then the last email they sent to us was a huge change, and they said, we're not going to increase our prices anymore, but we can now only deliver to you 1 day a month. And it's like, okay, so it was every week, and it's now gone to once a month. So it's like, there's 2 ways of looking at that. You could say, well, that's not going to work for us, so we're going to have to go somewhere else. Or, okay, we're going to have to change things here to make that work. So we bought another freezer. So now we get our meat in once a month, and we keep what we can fresh. The rest of it has to be frozen. And I'm okay with freezing meat if it's come from a good place. I would much prefer to serve meat that has been defrosted, that I know where it's come from, than fresh meat from God knows where. So we have had to change things, and that's okay. Like, life isn't perfect. There isn't an unlimited supply of local pigs that will just come to your door, all chopped up, backpacked with labels on whenever you want them. That isn't the reality of life.
Yeah, I love that. You know, adapting our businesses, adapting our lifestyles. You know, it's essential that we're ready to make those changes, and that we can sort of think laterally, so we can think about, you know, how we can adapt to make these things work. And Merthin Heritage, a great local business with really happy pigs. So good to hear that that's working well, and I guess cuts their costs. And I suppose, you know, a business like yours can make a massive difference for a local producer. Do you see that in the relationship you have with local producers? That you know, I imagine that would be one of the most rewarding parts of your job.
Yeah, I mean, I love this part of my job. This is why I do what I'm doing. I feel like I'm a champion for these producers, because I know how hard. Well, I can only imagine how hard it is to run a business like that. I know how difficult farming is. If you want an insight of a local farmer that's going through a very, very tough time right now, it would be the family at Park Carreg Organic Duck Farm. They've just released a 3 mini-series show called How to Fail at Farming, and it is fascinating to see what's going on for them. And I've just watched the 3rd episode of it, and it's really, really tough out there. So of course I look at my suppliers like I do the staff of the Warren and the team of the Warren. They need looking after. You need to work with them. If they're saying, look, we can only deliver once a month now because it costs too much to have this van running, it costs too much to be driving all over the place, it takes up too much of our time, let's work together and try and work out how we're going to do this then. So that's kind of how I look at it. And yes, I talk about them all the time. I use them all on social media to say, great, look, Tanya's just turned up with X, Y, and Z. We've got this new dish on that's championing what Tanya's doing. And I really hope that raises awareness of what she's doing, and orders and demand goes up for her, because I want her to do well as equally as much as she wants me to do well. Because this project won't work if we run out of local suppliers, because I wouldn't want to run it anymore. If I couldn't get hold of local produce, I would give up. I would not do this anymore.
Powerful words there, Derry, and really inspiring. Thank you so much for sharing all of that. I think that, the interconnectedness of local businesses and local suppliers, the strength of those relationships is really what's going to see us through in hard times. So really great to get that message across. But we have a farmer in the room. Louisa is here from Paverland Farm on Gower. Louisa, does some of that resonate with you? Are times tough? And how much do you depend on, specifically we're talking about linking up producers with hospitality businesses. Do you supply into hospitality, and how does that work for you guys?
Since we started growing veg here 2 years ago, we've been primarily selling to local restaurants. So this morning we were picking beetroot for Beach House down the road from us. We also sell our Welsh black beef to a hotel that's hotel and restaurant, privately owned company that specialises in sourcing only regenerative produce. So that's worked well for us. So it's interesting what Derry was saying. That's something we'd like to roll out further, but it's finding the right outlets who can cope with the whole or a half side of beef. That not everybody can deal with that, so that's just the sort of logistical challenges, but hopefully that's something we can develop, because it certainly does mean that the producer gets a fairer price. I'm interested what you were saying about Blind Camel, Derry, because I know the guys there, and I think for us, we're trying to expand our veg operation, and of course that involves staffing and trying to pay people a fair wage. That cost is constantly going up, and so that for us is an issue that's impacting. We can't find staff, and when we do find them, we can't. Well, it basically, we've been running the veg now for 2 years, and it's run at a loss. So we can't keep this going forever. So it needs to become. It needs to kind of make sense at some point. We're lucky that the farm is big enough that we're carrying that at the moment because of everything else we're doing. But we need to grow the volume, we need more staff, and we need more expertise. We haven't got a qualified grower at the moment on the team. We're currently recruiting. So finding people is really difficult, as well as I'm sure, is in every industry. We're hearing that all the time. But like the emotional side of it is huge. There's a launch tomorrow about mental health in farming, and we've been involved in that, and the pressures are massive, and I know that from a personal point of view. You talked about working in collaboration. One of our customers, who I would say probably our biggest hospitality customer, a few weeks ago we suddenly got a message through saying, sorry, we don't want any of your product anymore. Just because not that they don't like it, it's just that they don't want what we're growing at the moment on their menu. And just a message like that kind of almost makes me tearful, because you think, I've got all this produce. I was taking, let's say, £150 a week, it's not big money from that restaurant, and suddenly there's nothing. So it feels really personal. I know it's not, but it's about trying to build proper relationships with restaurants that actually, like you say, it's two-way, and they understand that you can't suddenly produce Cavolo Nero tomorrow. You've got to put it in the ground and wait for it to grow. There needs to be that understanding. What I'm hoping for next season is that we can maybe get into a system where let's have, say, 10, 15 restaurants who are our sort of special customers, who we have a working relationship with. And we almost have a sort of an informal contract or terms of understanding, if you like, where we say, look, you understand the fact that we can't grow stuff tomorrow. We need you to tell us what you want us to grow in advance. You know, we will aim to deliver once a week, but you know, bear with us, and it'll be 5 or 6 o'clock at night after we finish picking. We can't suddenly deliver at 12 o'clock in the middle of the day and fight with the Gower traffic. So there's an understanding of, you know, the realities of trying to make this work on both sides. And we've got some great chefs that we are working with who do get that, but you get others who are not quite as understanding, or who sometimes you feel like they buy from you once or twice because it kind of ticks a box, and then because it's too much hassle they drop you. You know, we want the ones that are going to be with us all year round and say, yes, we're going to have this, we're going to work with what you've got growing seasonally, and be proud of it and support us. I mean, there's one customer, we go in and we walk in with our big salad crates, and we've had the customers all turn around and start clapping, which is just amazing. You know, you just feel incredible, and those are the moments that keep you going. But there are other times which, you know, frankly, you just throw your hands in the air and go, why are we doing this? Yeah, so that's kind of, yeah, just a rant, but a short insight into life as a farmer.
Yeah, really insightful and emotional, really, Louisa, to sort of hear about that. And it again comes back to the importance of those mutual relationships. And with a model like community supported agriculture, where the customers kind of buy in and take a bit of that risk from the outset, and then the supplier knows, the producer knows that they've got the customer there for the produce. You know, I guess what you're saying is kind of building more of that kind of ethos where both parties recognize the importance of the other and support each other in difficult times as well as in the good times. And do you think it's mainly about volume? If you could sell more veg, would you make that more economically viable? Does it come down to the volume that you can produce? I mean, you've talked about skills and all kinds of sort of staffing challenges as well.
Yeah, if we had the staffing, then I think volume would help, but also I think the consistency, as I say, so that if we know that that we've got, let's say, 10, 15 restaurants that we can supply every week, and they're going to stick with us all year round, so we know we've got consistent income year round, that's what we need, then we can pay salaries all the year round. Otherwise, you know, ultimately you're you know, it's very difficult trying to pick the right products as well. And obviously we're on a learning curve, but trying to find the things that people want to buy, and also that we can physically grow as well with our soil and climate and all the challenges of lack of water and da.
Yes, yeah. So again, it's talking early and building those relationships early so that they can plan their menus based on what you're going to grow, and keeping that kind of communication open. Zoe, would you like to come in on any of this? I know you're passionate about local produce and local sourcing.
I am, and we've just run a project recently, again with some Gower farmers, where we've been taking local produce from a couple of Gower farms and putting it in a school, and that's been a really exciting project and a real learning there, which we're excited to talk about at our food conference coming up. But I wondered, like, listening to this sort of conversation, is there any sort of one place, like a website or an app or something like that, where you would put on what sort of produce that you're growing, so, and like it's gone in now, it'll be ready by this sort of time, so that local restaurants can sort of go, oh right, I'm gonna, okay, yeah, how many are you growing? I want some of those, I'll take 10 of those. And is there anything like that? Does anything exist, Alex?
Yeah, there's an app called, 2 seconds, I'll just find the email, sourcegrow.uk, .co.uk, and I think it's set up in Northern Ireland a few years ago with the University of Belfast to create local supply chains with farmers, growers and restaurants, and that covers what you're doing. I don't think it's been really taken up over here as yet, but the technology is there.
I have mentioned that to Jack, and I think he's looking at whether they can get some sort of funding to try and do something similar here.
I'm sure you've all heard of the Open Food Network.
Mm.
I'm not sure. I mean, that's something that I'm developing in Carmarthen to take Carmarthen food onto a little bit more of a modern platform. I believe that that a good platform that makes it easy for people to order food and support local growers is the key to it being successful. A lot of people have these things attached to the end of their hands now, and it needs to be double click to buy. It needs to have your address saved locally, and also when it comes to buying food, you want to know that it's definitely in stock. So what I would say, if I was going to be what I am going to say to the producers and the growers that I'm going to be supporting and putting through on that network is that be more social with what you're doing. And Louise, I wouldn't rely on restaurants. They are very flaky and fickle, and things can change at any moment. Restaurants are closing left, right, and center. They're closing on certain days. We've had to close on certain days. We've never done it before, but we didn't have any bookings one night, so we just closed. And I'm with Peter from Blind Camel, and he's able to cope with that. He's able to cope with 1 week us not being able to order off him. He doesn't rely on us at all. It's nice that we buy off him. We give him maybe 400 quid a week, which is great. But if we stopped that wouldn't impact him massively, because he has different, I suppose he is focusing just on vegetables, but he sells through farmers markets. He sells through the Open Food Network. He has a farm shop on the farm. So there's lots of different ways that he sells his vegetables. And when I was watching the Park Harreg 3 series, they were talking about business stacking, which is something new to what I've heard. And he was saying that when he was doing his duck eggs, he was also trying to grow vegetables and trying to grow fruit, and how difficult that was to stack businesses on top of each other. And what he said on the end of his on his documentary was that diversifying is what he's looking into next, is to, rather than stack similar businesses on top of each other, which basically just means that you're running 3 businesses rather than 1, is to diversify. And he's finding other ways of getting income off the farm to be able to look after what he does do, which is duck eggs. That's what he does, duck eggs. So yeah, that's my end of my rant.
Yeah, interesting to sort of share the learnings from across different businesses and different parts of the system. But what's clear is that the more we can connect suppliers, producers, different farmers with potential customers and different types of customer, the stronger the system becomes. So one of the challenges that's come up is this thing about infrastructure, facilities, whether we're talking about shared distribution or centralized refrigeration, or processing facilities like abattoirs, and I suppose other kind of value add processing of produce. What work is being done across the region to invest in those kinds of facilities? Alex, are you up on what's happening? Does anyone else want to come in? Does anyone know about kind of investment in those kind of facilities, or do you think that's really what is needed? Alex.
Certainly for us. Sorry, go on, Alex.
Yeah, Louisa.
No, go on. You definitely go.
No, I was just going to say that on the animal side of things, that would certainly help, having more local abattoirs. And I know that that's another area that's been hit really badly with businesses shutting down. Yeah, the cost of processing is a huge issue, which is why for us selling half a beast makes things so much easier. So yeah, definitely that's an area that could definitely do with more investment to allow. I mean, if we could have, say, a butchery plant in Gower, which all the local farmers could use together collaboratively or something like that, so that we could actually get our produce into local restaurants. I know loads of people have said to me, oh, please, can we get our beef from you? But it just doesn't stack up for us to sell it at the moment in that way.
Yeah, it sounds like there's a real opportunity for some investment and collaboration around some of those sorts of facilities to make things easier. Alex?
Yeah, just as well, like the facilities I suppose I was getting at outside of the meat for horticulture is a lot of restaurants might not have or want to take risk on taking, you know, dirty veg in. I'm not necessarily talking about like a potato rumbler or things like that, but you know, for example, when you buy organic cabbages or things like that, it's maybe just a simple sort of bagging, you know, washing and bagging process could open some doors. It's just a thought, but I know that some people that do take that in-house as part of when they supply into distributors, they have a bit more consistency in their demand through the distribution network.
Yeah, that's interesting. I suppose what we're trying to do is make it as convenient as possible to buy from smaller local growers and producers. And it's really challenging, isn't it, to compete with what we're used to, the kind of globalized, industrialized food system that makes it seem like it's really easy to get perfectly shaped, perfectly formed, perfectly consistent fruit and veg all year round at the drop of a hat. So it's a challenge.
I think we would love to have a local outlet as well, where, you know, like either a farm shop or you know, a market ideally, where we could sell every week. Because the problem with a lot of these markets are only on once a month. You can't survive on just once a month. And I think I know in Monmouthshire, like they've got, say, Market Town still, where there's a weekly market, and I know producers up there do a lot better selling to local people because people get used to going every Saturday to go and buy from the local market. We don't have that here, and we're also quite a long way from a lot of people where we are. So you've then got that cost. You know, and again, we'd love to put up a farm shop. But again, that's money and planning permission and blah, blah, blah.
It's a sort of longer term objective, isn't it? Yes. Interesting about farmers markets and how we can get that local produce closer to where the customers are. Richard, can I come back to you for some reflections on a lot of those challenges and where you think the key levers are to support the whole system and develop more of these kind of relationships that we're talking about?
Yeah, for sure. I think there are a lot of challenges. I think there's challenges within the food system itself, and there's clearly a lot of challenges within the economic climate at the moment. You know, I know Alex put a comment in there that, you know, with the current pressure on the cost of living, then customer decisions are going to be mitigated in terms of cost more than potentially the sourcing of their food. But I think it's an attitudinal piece, an awareness piece, and I think there is good work going on in the background, albeit it is a slow process. I know the recent review into qualifications around hospitality and catering that Qualifications Wales have done have got outputs looking at improving the awareness of food sourcing within the school curriculum, pre-GCSE and post-GCSE level, as well as focusing more on basic culinary skills rather than flambeing at the table and things like that, but actually getting a better awareness of how to create a soup or a stock or create bread and things like that, which will hopefully create more awareness. And I think, you know, as people become more aware of costs and food miles and things like that, that ties into stimulating demand for more local produce. And I think it's a journey. And I think there are consumers out there who see local sourcing as being hyper-local, which is a real opportunity there in fixing those systems to be able to have farmers like Louisa getting their produce available in acceptable ways and stimulating that demand. But then there's other people, you know, across society that their perception of local might just be buying Welsh. And I think it's just building at different levels everyone's awareness so that it evolves. And I think, like I say, at the moment, there's a lot of work going on around that in the background. Welsh Government is starting a big campaign about Welsh food and drink, which is due to start through November, running through to St David's Day, the Cara Cymru Cara Blas campaign, which is working with the suppliers as well as with the retailers and hospitality businesses to promote the brilliant products that are available through Wales that are fantastic. And that again is just about awareness and stimulating people's thought process instead of just going to Tesco's and buying what's cheapest. So I think it's multi-layered, and whilst there are plenty of challenges, there are still a lot of opportunity there.
Thanks, Richard. So I'm at the stage of this conversation now where I think we're starting to wrap up. So I'm keen to have closing thoughts from anyone who would like to offer me some closing thoughts. Sandra, we haven't heard from you for a little bit. What are your reflections? Have you come out of this feeling inspired that there's more to do, or feeling pretty happy that Bluestone is really ahead of the game on this? What are your final thoughts?
Well, there's always more to do. So yeah, no, we are buying local, but listening to Derry, for instance, from the Warren, I was taking quite a lot of notes there. How passionate they are there. It's even in my mind that I might take a visit. It's just, yeah, so there's still a lot more to do, and we're keen to do it, and we're going to carry on trying to achieve it, really. Yeah, Bluestone could make does make such a massive difference in the Pembrokeshire economy, and it'd be great to hear more of those stories as you continue to make progress on the good work that you're doing, and championing local produce to all those people who come to visit Bluestone every year. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for this. Lovely. Closing thoughts from anybody else? Vicky, are you still there? Would you like to say anything to wrap up? Oh, can you unmute?
Yeah, I thought I'd clicked it, but because there's ideas coming out here which are finding the barriers and also identifying opportunities. It'd be sensible to have this sort of discussion with a funder or a policymaker or both, so that and to make sure that the ideas you're coming up with could work equitable, agreed upon, and practical. Then this sort of discussion could lead straight, in my view, into possibly, investing in some shared infrastructure if that was required, or changing. So that's it. Would be, it's been very valuable, and I think it could be nice if it could lead into a practical action as a result of that kind.
Yeah, great. And I think it's a matter of making sure those with the funding and the decision-making power are really listening to what local producers, growers and businesses are saying are needed. So we're certainly capturing a lot of insight from today's conversation, and I'm sure through the regional food conference that's coming up, we're hoping to engage with policymakers through that process as well, just to amplify the voices that we've heard today. Yes, Vicky?
I just come back. I think it's quite important, because at the moment the initiatives are being given to the voluntary sector organisations who don't have a background in business and efficiency, and it makes me, I find it really frustrating to see so many people being paid so much to do so little. Sorry, guys. And they're all very nice people getting paid, but oh my goodness.
Yeah, it's so insightful.
Yeah.
It's really insightful when you hear from real businesses and real producers, and we need to all be listening and talking so much more to really understand what needs doing, and then we need to get on and do it, as you say. Derry.
I just wanted to say thank you for the invite. Alex invited me today, so thank you, Alex. It's great to meet new faces and talk to people. I think we're all here for the same reason. We all want to try and make change, and I just wanted to say that if anyone thinks that my information can be of any use, I'm happy to share anything and everything. My goal is to make this work for everyone. So I would just like to say, drop me an email, or we can have a chat at any time. That's it from me. Thank you.
Thank you, Derry. It's been really great to meet you today and to hear about your amazing business. I'm sure we'll all be down to sample some amazing local produce before too long. Louisa, I'll come to you before we close. I know that's a really challenging time, but do you see progress happening, or are you losing hope?
We always keep hope, and one other thing I was going to mention, I don't know if it was mentioned earlier, is about the sustainable farming bill. We're putting our feedback into that, and I think closing for that at the end of the week. So we're really hoping that down the track we're going to get some more targeted support from government, because that's what we desperately need on a larger level. We've also been talking to them about organic conversion, because unfortunately the proposal that they've got out at the moment doesn't fit with our farm, which is really upsetting. And I think we just need to, as farmers, need to be educating government as well as to what we need, because like, you know, in all countries, all farms are different. We're not a typical farm because we're coastal, we're largely arable, we're not a typical Welsh farm, and therefore some of the policies that they put out don't fit with what we do, and we need to have an adaptation, and they haven't built that in. So we need to keep those conversations going to make sure that farms of all sizes can get the appropriate support that they need. I think a lot of people out on the street think that going organic is like a really easy thing to do, but it's not. It's like a whole change. It's like turning the Titanic, and when you've got 1,000 acres of land, it's not something you can just do overnight, and there are big zeros after it. And yeah, it's challenging. So let's all just let's keep at it, and we'll get there, I'm sure.
Yes, and our hope, I think, for the future is that your model of farming becomes much more the norm here in Wales, and that the government are able to provide the right kind of support for these really great local farms to grow. And I think we've talked a little bit about young people and schools and the education system, and you know, it has to start there, doesn't it, about really making sure kids in our schools and those taking on careers in the food sector are learning the right things, of coming out of school with the right priorities, that we've got the skills coming through, but that we're also just changing the whole mentality and the whole mindset about the real importance of understanding the provenance of the food that we eat, and asking our restaurants and cafes where they're getting their food from, making sure that's high on our agenda when we're eating out, as well as when we're shopping and buying food for our families. Vicky mentioned at the beginning the kind of multifaceted benefits of this work. It's not just the economic and the importance for local jobs and businesses. It's not just the environmental, which is absolutely top of the concerns for so many people about decarbonising our food system and restoring and regenerating our natural environment. But it's also about our well-being, our relationships to each other, our collective mental health, and our physical health from eating healthy local produce that's grown in healthy soils. There's so much win-win-win if we can get this right. So great to hear from all of you that are leading the way and working so hard to promote local produce and sell it and grow it and put it high up on the agenda. It's certainly key for us here at For the Region as well, and we'll be working hard over the next few weeks and months to join people up and continue the good work that's happening. Another quick plug for the Regional Food Conference coming up on Zoom. There's an evening session for those who want to come along in the evening, and a morning session for those that can make it on the Wednesday morning. We'll be talking about a number of key themes, including procurement and local sourcing, but also about the marketing, you know, growing the customer base, growing the demand, growing the awareness. You know, we talked about people want to feel that their provenance of their produce is as important to them as those other things that we've created massive behavior change around, like recycling, like quitting smoking, you know, these kind of big behavior changes that are needed. How can we enable that? How can we put the importance of local food on everybody's mind, not just our minds as a kind of bubble of passion, but really grow that awareness and education across society. So we'll be talking about all of that and so much more at the upcoming Regional Food Conference. But for today, I'd like to really say thank you to our guests from Bluestone, from the Warren, from the Mine, from Superbox, from Food and Drink Wales, from Paverland Farm, from Pembrokeshire Group Resilience. Really great group of people, so much insight shared. Thank you all so much for your time, and no doubt we'll speak to you all again soon. Thanks for listening to today's conversation. Bye for now.